I've really started to embrace the beauty of the hard times. And it's never easy in the middle of it. I always want it to be gone.
The real courage of the entrepreneur is to stare the reality in the face and believe that you're going to get through it. Actually believing and knowing we will get through this. Every entrepreneur, I think, faces that challenge where you do want to turn and walk away, or you want to try to go around it, but there's only one way, and it's to go through it.
My dad had started this company, and this was a balloon twisting company. You know, Dad had big visions for it, and Dad was always extremely busy. My memory growing up was he'd go into the office at 3:30 in the morning. One of his daily rituals was he would listen to 300 voicemails of all of his balloon twisters checking in at restaurants. And so he's going in every night and he'll listen to the voicemail, delete it, check off in the database, listen to the voicemail, check off, delete, check off, delete. And I'm like, Dad, we could totally automate this thing. So we built this is my first web app that I built, was taking that process, following this drive to make it more efficient. And we built an online check-in process. And Dad didn't have to go pull those voicemail messages off. So I think for me, that specific project was really about saving time so that Dad didn't have to spend those extra, minutes and hours checking people into the restaurant, which felt like a pretty menial task. I caught the fire of what could be done with this custom software. At that point in my life is when we decided to go actually start a company building custom software for other people. It seemed like the natural next step. And so me and my brother, who was also working at the balloon company, we decided to take off and we were gonna go do our own thing.
So I married his older sister, and when Sharice and I were dating, I got to know Scott, and I knew of him, but I really didn't know him that well. As time went by after we got married, I got to know him better and better, but just super smart, genuine, real, good guy.
And so we'd see him on the holidays and stuff and try to lure him into this thriving business that we had created.
They were saying, "Oh, it's going so great. We're having so much fun." And I said, "Well, are you making any money?"
And we would report, "No, we're not making really any money." But
and I pressed on, and they weren't making anything. And I was like, "Listen, I would love to come do what you're doing, but I've got student loans. I've got kids. I can't do that." So I was getting ready to start working to find a law job, and 9/11 hit, and it shut down all of the hiring in the legal industry. I had already given my notice at the software company where I was working.
For us, Clate was the one with business sense and the one with sales acumen. I think that's what we were looking. That's what we originally saw him for.
I was doing some work for a nonprofit legal foundation while I was looking for a law job down here. Well, while I was doing that, things were starting to pick up a little bit that spring, but that was the point when I started doing work with Scott and Eric, and it was way more fun than law, and I could see that we could create something really cool together.
And so when Clate came in, he was like, "Look, our business relies on billable hours, so number one, you guys get coding, and number two, I'm gonna do everything else." He became the jack of all trades.
It was so hard, and it was literally, for the first year, it was just a complete struggle every month to pay our mortgage. We were always paying it late. It was really tough.
We're trying to get custom jobs. It's hard. We're having to come down on prices, and then we spend twice the amount of time we thought we were. It was hard to make ends meet. We get a call from our biggest client that was probably 70% of our revenue at the time, and they said, "We're done." And I don't know how much time they gave us. It was a matter of a few weeks, and they were done cold turkey. And talk about a challenging time for us. It was like, ouch.
The personal side of it was that I had been through all of this school. We had a mountain of student debt. We're taking home literally a couple $1,000s a month. There were months where we took home zero.
Our amazing wives were just patient and loving, and we went for months and months. I think it was 5 months with zero take-home income for us.
I had 4 kids. Charisse was saying, what are we doing? There was a day where Charisse said to me, look, I just can't do it anymore. And I had been saying for quite some time, several months, it's getting better. And she was like, it's not, it wasn't getting better for her. And so she would say over and over, it was not getting better for me. And one night, we had a really hard argument, and I had succeeded many times in persuading her to stick with it. But that night I couldn't. She was like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't do this because we have no money. We have no food. Like we need things to be different. And she said, I need you to go get a job. And maybe you can come back around to Infusionsoft, as it was called back then. Maybe you can come back around to the company later, but I need you to go get a job. I need you to promise me that when you go to work, you will do it. And I could see that she was serious. I had to. And I've always felt like, as much as I love the business, I didn't ever want to lose the business or lose my family or, my wife over the business. So this was a very tear-filled conversation for both of us, but I promised her I would. I went to work the next day. I think like every entrepreneur, I sat in the seat, and the work just envelops you. And I didn't, the day came to an end, and I hadn't done one bit of job searching. And I was leaving the office, and I was actually worried, like really worried, and I felt bad because I told her I would, and the business just swallowed me whole that day. I'm driving home, just like, crap, what am I going to say to Charisse? And I walked into the house that day and was super nervous. I came into the room and she said, did you look for a job today? And I said, no. And I was bracing. I was nervous. I was really worried, genuinely worried. And she came over and she just gave me a huge hug, and she just hugged me really tight and held on to me. And, she just said, she was holding on, and I could tell she was crying, and I started crying. I was like, what's going on? And she said, just keep going. It's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. To put it really frankly, she had just had a really spiritual experience, and she said, God knows what's happening. It's going to be okay. Just keep going. But that is why we call it Keap. That's why we say keep going, keep serving, keep growing. When we rebranded the company, it was about that tenacity that's required of the entrepreneur to keep going.
Clate picks up the phone, and this guy blurts out, I have pain. Can you help me? And we set him up and started building custom software. Gradually, we started building things for him, and he had other small business clients who really needed the software that we were building. He's like, man, let's just turn this thing into a product, and I'm going to start selling it to my people. And so he invited us to one of his marketing conferences, and Clate and I got up on stage. And remember, this is coming from an environment where we are grinding to close every single sale. We get up on stage in the 60-minute pitch, basically, and he tells his story of how we've done everything for him. And we're like, okay, everybody, here's the deal. And we sold it for, I think it was about $5,000 upfront fee, plus about $500 a month. And 30 minutes later, Clate and I are out in my little piece of crap truck, sitting there with 16 completed order forms from everybody who had just purchased, and looking at each other in shock and saying, what on earth just happened?
We had built the automation capabilities into our software for a bunch of customers just a few months before that. And they had started using it, and I was starting to hear stories about how awesome it was. But we weren't using it yet in our business. We were using the CRM capabilities. I was using it every day to track our leads and prospects and to do manual follow-up and manual, sales work. But I wasn't doing any of the automated campaigns. And I had been telling myself, and my, Scott and Eric had been saying, hey, you should use this. And I was like, I know I should. I know, but I need time to put this put these campaigns together. And I decided, okay, that night I'm going to write out the campaign. And what happened was, in week 2, I had a prospect call me and say, hey, I've been getting your stuff. I'm interested. I got a couple questions. I answered the questions, and he said, okay, I'm ready to buy. And I was floored. because what had been a multiple step sales conversation process suddenly turned into, he called me and was ready to buy the software. I took his order. I went into Eric and Scott. I said, guys, check out what just happened. I remember the campaign that I wrote. Well, this guy called me. He's ready to buy. And they were like, hey, nice, good job. And I was like, it was a bigger deal than you realize. I go back to my office. Well, it happened again a couple of days later. I went into them. I said, guys, turn around, move away from the keyboard and look at me. We have magic here. In hindsight, I can say it very clearly. We went from being techies that would do anything to then custom software to then semi-custom software where we had kind of a core product and we would add a bunch of services to it and custom development, to then a product that had a lot of services around it, to then having a true product. And that true product that was a subscription-based product. And it didn't happen overnight. It was all of those learnings from customers and figuring out how to deliver the solution for them. It was anything but clear as we were going through it.
We were small. We were tight. Everybody had a sense for what was going on, and I think they could see in our eyes the possibility and the opportunity that was in front of us. The antidote to chaos is systems, right? Is organization. And we realized that really for us, this was about empowering entrepreneurs and enabling entrepreneurs to be successful. The last several years have been the most challenging as we got to, there's so many levels of growth that you have to get through as a company. And for me, for Clate, for Eric, I think it's been an amazing experience so far. And, the crazy thing is, I feel like we're still just getting started.
I'm so fired up about this next stage of the business because of all the things we've learned and all of the hard work we've put in. That's one thing I love about entrepreneurship is it refines us. It just makes us better if we embrace it.
That's what it's all about, to keep on going.